I'm about to undertake my greatest hobby challenge yet. More challenging than finishing an Imperial Knight in 24 hours. Bigger than the Reaver Battle Titan, and that is trying to make the Primaris Outrider ATV look good. I mean, what is there to say about it? It's fine. Like, it's kind of a cool thing. Like, if it was in a video game, I would hop in and drive it around, but as the Space Marine biker heavy weapon platform, it's... You know what I mean? I think this kit alone is one of the big reasons why Primaris left a bad taste in people's mouths, because it's not very good. And that's too bad, because the bikers are cool. Not everybody agrees the bikers are cool. There was a meme going around when they came out that they have no ground clearance, but to be fair, the old bikers also had no ground clearance, and it would be really lame if Space Marines were riding around on dirt bikes. I like the big, chonky Akira-style bikes that look like they could run over some people. And that's what I want to bring to the Outrider ATV. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I'm going to find out. As much as I'm poo-pooing this kit, it's always a good time to crack in some fresh plastic and do something new. I've been building a lot of samey-same recently. More Crusaders, more Death Guard. It's exciting to bring in a new challenge. Inside are 2 simple sprues. Push-fit sprues. It's a pretty simple kit. The biggest part is the body, which is one humongous chunk of plastic with the Space Marine's butt and legs attached. For weapons, it comes with an Onslaught Gatling cannon, an 8-shot Strength 5 AP zip weapon, but I guess at least it has devastating wounds. Or a multi-melta, an absolute tank destroyer that doesn't really have the strength to wound tanks reliably. There was a little gap between the 2 halves of the guns. I filled this in with some Tamiya basic putty, getting it to where it needs to go with toothpicks. Flipping the tank upside down, it actually has no bottom. People made a big stink over the no bottom on the Rogel Dorn battle tank, but this guy has been rolling around bottomless since 2020, and I've never heard a peep. I guess no one has bought one but me. Since this is a push-fit model, I pushed everything halfway to fitting so that I could take a good look at this sucker. Now that I have the Primaris ATV in front of me, I think it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge to make this guy feel unique, because it is an easy to build kit. Everything is push fit, and that means it's going to be really hard or pretty much impossible to kit bash and convert this sucker. Right now, it's fulfilling the role of a super bike that can carry 1 extra heavy weapon. And that's not a particularly exciting role, especially in Codex Space Marines, but if I can make it feel like it has a purpose on the battlefield, I think that'll help it a lot. I clipped the headlights off the front wheels. Space Marines don't need headlights. It makes the vehicle look way too reasonable. And for Space Marines, there's only one rule, and that's the rule of cool. The front console has this ugly cross-shaped piece of armor. I don't need that either. I tossed it and shaved down the pegs so that the front was nice and smooth. After that, I carved off the front bumper. Again, Space Marine vehicles don't need to be street legal. Now for those guns. The Space Marine in the back is holding onto the handles of the guns, and I trimmed these off because I want the option to swap between the 2. I could probably get away with the peg that the kit is designed for, but I would rather use magnets. I drilled a 5mm hole into the buggy and inserted a 5mm diameter magnet, locking it down with way too much ultra-thin superglue and baking soda. Then I drilled a 3mm hole in the turret, sinking a 3mm by 2mm magnet inside. This holds really good. Magnetizing vehicles is nice because you get to use the big magnets. The front is now a lot simpler, but it's still lacking something. Or maybe it's not lacking something at all, it's just actually has way too much bulky square armor showing. I have got the Onslaught Gatling Cannon and the Multi-Melta all magnetized up for my Primaris ATV, and just knocking out the front armor and the headlights does make it look a little bit better. And I finally thought of an angle that can make this thing actually look good, like it has an actual role in my Primaris army. And it is a role very befitting of a unit as fugly as the Primaris ATV, and that is the Space Marine Waterboy. What can a medium-sized, fast-moving Space Marine vehicle do on the battlefields of Warhammer 40,000? Well, it can lug around extra ammo and replacement parts. And speaking of those replacement parts, I know exactly where to get those from. My Space Marine bit bin. Space Marines, especially Black Templar, come with way too many bits to possibly use them all on my Marines. I went sprue by sprue, cutting off all the extra pistols, pouches, knives, guns, magazines, baggies, and chainswords, making a little pile of loose equipment. Now I have to make something for all of this loose kit to fit in, or rather to hang off of. I mixed up a healthy amount of green stuff, kneading the 2 halves together, folding it in between a piece of parchment paper and rolling it flat. I don't use green stuff much. I tried cutting a straight edge and I found out that I need to use a lot of water or else it'll stick itself down to everything. Once I did manage to cut 2 rectangles, I hung them over the sides of the ATV. Then I cut out some small strips using so much water to try and keep it from sticking to my knife and made some little straps to put over the edge of the ATV. And then I took a small glue applicator tip and gently pressed it into the clay, leaving behind little rivets. Now for the decorating. On the right side, I hung all my extra chain swords. I presume those chains wear out pretty quick. I can imagine this buggy rolling up and the Crusaders depositing their swords all gunked up with orc guts for fresh ones. I was so lost in thought imagining orc guts that I dropped the ATV, which is not a good idea with soft green stuff, but it turned out it was okay. Now for that combi plasma gun. I nipped off the handle and glued on a fresh one that I stole off of a bolter. Back in the day, combi weapons only could do one shot with their special attack, so having an extra would be helpful. I took a long strip of green stuff and laid it across the sword using a wet toothpick to make it hug the shapes. Then I flipped the buggy over, and on the other side, I started gluing down holsters. I figured out I could fit 6 if I put them on a slight angle. I like that one of these holsters is empty. The ATV has already done its job of resupplying a Marine. Then I attached some pouches and pockets to the rest of the free space, sticking on some drum magazines from bolter shells at the very bottom. I ran another strip of green stuff along the holsters and then glued the combi plasma over the chain swords, wrapping it in just a little bit more green stuff. Now is a Space Marine unit with an actual battlefield role. I found some epic basing candles in my bit bin that were the perfect size for the rear wheel coverings, and now my ATV is blinged out. You know, this little ATV is really starting to grow on me because I got to use up so many bits that I never ever would have done anything with. They would have just sat in my bits bin forever, but I would have held on to them because I would have thought I will one day use that, but I never actually will. Well, it's all on this ATV, and the best part of it is it's covering up a lot of the ATV. And it's all thanks to today's sponsor, Cobalt Keep. You all know the name Cobalt Keep. In addition to making the best quality magnet-ready bases this side of the Mississippi, they also have the most important tool in a wargamer's arsenal, nippers. Their sprue nippers are perfect for blasting through the thickest sprues, cutting out your plastic parts with ease. With a comfortable handle and wide jaws, these tools are the perfect thing for attacking a fresh box of plastic, and their small form factor makes them perfect for fitting into a traveling hobby setup. Sometimes while working on the most intricate of details, you need more control and precision. Then the Cobalt Keep detail nippers are the tool for you. With a single blade design and large non-slip grip handles, these sharp cutters carve through plastic like butter, leaving you with the cleanest edges imaginable. These products form a 1-2 punch that can deal with any challenge a hobby kit might throw at you. Whether it's a big chunky plastic or resin connection that needs a little oomph, the sprue nippers can cut through them. And for those impossibly delicate projects that require a gentle touch, then you can snipe those with ease using the detail nippers. If you want to up your nip game, there's no better than Cobalt Keep, and right now Cobalt is offering our viewers 20% off. Shop with the code EOB20 to get 20% off their sprue nippers and detail nippers. A big thanks to Cobalt Keep for sponsoring this video, and remember, please nip responsibly. One last thing I need to do is put my Templar backpack skulls on. I do this to every single one of my battle brothers. The guy driving isn't wearing a backpack. I guess the buggy is powering a suit, kind of like when I charge my phone in my car. The buggy is easy to build, but I have to do something to make the Marines unique. I clipped off the neck of one of the helmets and glued it to his waist. The gunner will be headless. And speaking of heads, what head could be better than the Marshal's head? I put both their noggins on some Cobalt Keep painting handles, as well as everything else I wanted to paint separately. Then I primed the model black for Black Templars. Then a zenithal highlight from above. I really like how this looks on the weapon racks, and now he's ready for painting. Now, I definitely don't think that the Primaris ATV is a bad unit, it's just very overshadowed with how incredibly stuffed the Space Marine Codex is. 8 wounds at toughness 5, 2 objective control is not a bad stat line, but I think its best use is to be attached to a full squad of Outriders with an attached chaplain on bike. In that case, it's adding about 10 devastating wounds, so that whole squad is throwing about as much damage as the grenade strat. And if you don't have a lot of objective points to be throwing grenade strat every single turn, that sort of a squad can do a ton of damage. And that is exactly what I want my Outrider to do as soon as I get it painted up. I put my Black Templar contrast paint mixture, which is mostly Black Templar with a little Leviathan blue and lots of Lamian median all over the armor parts of the model and the wheels. Then I put 2 coats of Nuln Oil over the metal frame parts and on the Imperialis on the Marines' chests. I mixed up a cold gray color and did some dry brushing over the armor to bring out the edges of the panels in the vehicle. For the metal, I mixed Wildwood contrast paint and thinned it down 50-50 and put this over all the leather parts, and I thought it looked a little desaturated, so I put Skeleton Horde over the top to bring back some of that warmth. I lightly dry brushed a tan over the leather and fixed any overbrushing with white paint to bring back my original Zenithal Prime. I put Black Templar contrast paint over all the pistol handles, the combi bolter, and the chainswords. And for the chainsword grips, I painted them purple. I don't know why I paint handles of Space Marine weapons purple, but I always have, and I always will. I dry brushed the Black Templar parts with silver paint, giving the metal parts another once over, and then sprayed some white paint to make the plasma glow. I airbrushed light blue over the white and then put magic blue onto my plasma coils, using a watery white paint to flow in between the cracks and give it that glowing energy look. Then I mixed up lighter and lighter shades of blue, highlighting the glow being cast on the leather and chainswords, going over these again and again until it was nearly white paint. One of my better object source lighting jobs. I painted the melty candles red. Don't ask how the candles stay lit as this buggy's driving 130 miles an hour. The Space Marines don't skimp out on candles, they buy the good stuff. I tipped them in yellow flames and then moved on to making this mini more Templars-y. I put some gloss paint over the few flat areas in the model and then found some small white Templar crosses on my decal sheet and a little white Space Marine skull. I put the crosses onto the armor panels that feel purposely sized for these decals and the skull right in the middle center console. To lock these decals down, I brushed some satin varnish over top. I like my supply buggy, but another fun buggy could be an apothecary buggy. I don't know where Games Workshop thinks we're gonna put these big ol' apothecary decals. I sponged on some gray paint to make chips in the decals and then brushed on some silver paint over the skulls, doing a few little scratches, and my buggy is bugtastic. Also a side note, I love Volkswagen Beetles, and it's been fun to say buggy over and over. I've got the buggy, part of my buggy, all painted up, and I like it a lot more than I thought I would. It's kind of hard to pour all the effort of painting and modeling something and not start to like it, but it's growing on me, and I have to make a decision. What to do about the base, or lack thereof. Do I put sand in the tires? For my Black Templar, I put them all on sandy desert bases, but I feel like I shouldn't do that for the buggy. If I make the tires dusty yellow, they're not really gonna look their best when I take it to the friendly local game store and I put it on an ice map or a lava map. And to be fair, my normal Templar are still gonna look a little bit mismatched, but at least there's context because my chaplain on bike here, he has a base, and so it adds context to why the tires are all gunked up. Where this guy with no base, I kind of feel like I should leave it clean, and then it'll look really nice on whatever terrain I end up playing on. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. And you know what else I'm gonna do? I'm gonna paint up the pilots. I have painted Black Templar Space Marines hundreds of times, and these guys are no different. I made their shoulder pads dirty with Skeleton Horde and Wildwood contrast paint, and then did red trim over the shoulder pads, and then applied my Templar decals. After the decals, I painted a sponging of silver over all the armor. To paint the center console, I base coated the screen white, and then used my favorite paint color for sci-fi screens, Army Painter Ghillie Doo. I painted this on and then did a smaller square in the center and then another to make a dark gradient. After that, I painted on yellow lines going vertically and horizontally and then did another layer of Ghillie Doo. Then painted on a few dots of red as if these are the objective markers that the buggy has to drive to. Lastly, I put a gloss varnish over the screen to make the colors as bright as possible. For the helmeted head, I painted my Templar cross right over his face, picking out his eye lenses with red paint, mixing a little bit of white into this red for a pink and then did some little dots in the center of each lens. I tore everything off its paint handles and then glued them all into the final positions. I've been getting much better at not rushing this step. Now for the only little bit of exposed skin, the one dude's noggin. For my Templar flesh, I use a gradient from magenta through beige to tan and then to white. I started out glazing the beige, then doing a glaze of magenta. Then a highlight of 50% beige, 50% tan, then a wash of Reikland flesh shade. Then another highlight of my 50-50 mix, and then a final highlight with light beige and tan. The hardest part is the eyes. The tiniest little dot of black, and then an even tinier dot of white, and then another even smaller dot of black for the pupil. I love super saturated skin for my Templars. It looks great next to the dullness of their black armor. I finished off the skulls in the backpack and the wheel wells, and it's getting pretty darn close. I am itching to get it on the tabletop. The ATV has kind of an interesting rule on its data sheet, Outrider Escort. This means that in my opponent's turn, if another mounted Space Marine unit gets shot at within 6 inches of the ATV, that ATV can shoot at that thing as if it was my shooting phase. Not a bad little rule. Free shots are always welcome. Unfortunately, it is not spammable. It's only once per phase, so I can't bring 3 squads of Outriders and 3 ATVs and just have a shooting gallery in my opponent's turn, which is a little bit unfortunate. The ATV, is it a bad unit? On paper, not at all. The only problem with it is that Space Marine Codex has a lot of paper in it, and if you have an extra 70 points in your list, you're probably not gonna fill it with the ATV. But you know what you might fill it with? That's right, our Patreon. Over there we have a fresh set of terrain every month, and this month we have the Dark Elf Encampment. Soar through the air in the Marauder and then set up camp in the Pleasure Tents, Arena Walls, and the Pleasure Portal. This is a set of characterful terrain pieces and wonderful accessories for the discerning elf. To paint the guns, I gave them a coat of watered down rattling grime for the darkness and the tinge of brownness. Then for the multi-melta, I painted gold paint over the barrels, sponging on rattling grime over the front end to make it look charred and crispy. Then I gave both weapons a dry brushing of silver. On the shields, I painted them red with a gradient from dark red at the bottom to pure red on top, and I did a wash over the rivets. Now I have plenty of free space for more Templar decals. I sprayed some satin varnish over the plastic decals and then sponged on some dark red to make paint chips in the symbols, using my paintbrush to make a few of them bigger. Then I sponged on some silver paint to make the red look chipped and weathered. I snapped the magnetized weapons into place and I have transformed this model and it's ready to roll out. Usually when I finish a model, it becomes my new favorite thing, and the Primaris Outrider ATV, for all its faults, for all of its fugliness, I really like it. I really like how it turned out. I have been playing so much 10th edition, and I have been playing with all of the right things. Gladiator Lancers, Eradicators, Assault Marines with Jump Pack. I've been getting the itch. I want to try some of the things that are considered bad, because those are some of the things that I find really exciting. I want to try out Reavers. I want to try to make Stern Guard Veteran work. I want to bring Primaris Outrider ATVs. Plain old Crusader squads, not Primaris Crusader squads, I have got to get some hours clocked on those because eventually that codex is going to come out and they're probably not going to be a thing anymore, so I really want to give them a try on the tabletop. Please let me know in the comments below, what is a Space Marine unit that you just love that has nobody else excited? I want to hear about it. Big thanks to Cobalt Keep and their nippers for sponsoring this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, thanks for watching.